Hello and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. It's actually the afternoon this time, believe it or not, and it's also very hot too, hence the fan, which is going to be constantly blowing my hair inside or into my face, even whenever I'm talking to the camera, which is great because now you'll never be able to see me. But this time we're drawing the Thing, specifically the Thing from Marvel Nemesis, because I'll be damned if I'm not going to get as much meat out of this garbage game as I can. Alright, so I've already got the base sketch drawn. I did it a good few days ago. I did all of the base sketches for these Marvel Nemesis drawings, because this is gonna be a little mini series for a while, for as long as that, as I say, garbage game is being played. There's gonna be a new one of these every week. Because basically it's going to be a different character in each video, so I mean, may as well be a different character in each one of these videos. May as well get some meat out of it, as I say. But yeah, I did this a while ago, and yeah, I've done all the rest of them a while ago. I don't really have a particular topic for this video, not like the other ones, it's just kind of more or less about the drawing of the video, or the drawing in the video. Another thing is that you might hear a little bit of fan noise, nothing I can really do about it, has to be on. It is very hot today. But yeah, let's get into it. Pretty sure the rocks are going to be something we are going to add in later, and we're just going to try and do our best to get in as many of the kind of features as we can, as simply as we can, before adding in rocks. Because that'll just make life very complicated whenever that stuff starts coming in, so I'll just do my best to try and kind of get everything else done first. But yeah, no, I should probably mention that I did move. I mean, as you can see from my background, it's different. I'm in a different house. But yeah, that did take a while. You see, for me, it's been quite a while since I did one of these, but for you, it's only been a week since the last one came out, so I mean, this is the thing, you've not experienced time the same way that I have. I mean, I make it sound like I'm aging rapidly or something, but yeah, this map's looking a bit strange here. But I have been doing a lot of drawing in my spare time, off camera. And yeah, no, at some point, I don't know when, I started doing very detailed musculature. Don't know when it happened, but it just did at some point, and I didn't notice when it happened, but it crept up on me. It crept up on me like a sickness. But yeah, this is what we're up to now. But yeah. No curtains or anything, so there's a lot of light hitting me on the side of the face, which, you know what, it doesn't look bad on camera, I think, but it is kind of distracting some of the time. But yeah. It's a little cross-eyed, but you know, I don't think I mind it too much. It's a little tricky whenever you're doing a pose like this, which does have a little bit of like that kind of downward angle touch to it, because yeah, the head is tilted downwards, and yeah, it does make things a little trickier in that sense. To angle his face a little bit more, like that. A bit more tapering on here because it's looking a little bit too square. So, something which I haven't really discussed before, and it's something which I don't know if you might have noticed yet at this point, but I did intentionally make his head smaller whenever I was drawing it. And so the reason for that is it makes his body look bigger, because I mean, this is the thing with the Thing is that he's supposed to be very, very, very wide, and particularly, I mean, yeah, even in Marvel Nemesis he's pretty chunky, so it's a case of where his head I would kind of make a little smaller, and his eyes are small and stuff like this. So it's a case where his body needs to be very big in comparison. So here he's got very wide shoulders and stuff like this to kind of emphasize his size a little bit more. And as I'm drawing, I am kind of adding a touch to those bits even now. So I'm kind of making his shoulders even a little bigger because I feel like they could stand to be a bit bigger, and I made his head a little smaller as well because I feel like it could stand to be shrunken in a touch, so that it's just not quite as kind of weird and long looking. Like his head is very kind of tall at the top because of the nature of the tilt, but I don't want it to be too emphasized there because it'll look a bit strange. And then naturally with a character like this you have to make his pecs much bigger as well to kind of again emphasize just the sheer size of him. And make him, as they say, more of a unit. And again, you don't want to draw too much attention to stuff like the collarbone, because the collarbone will kind of fade away whenever not even fade away, but it won't be quite as pronounced whenever someone's got muscular shoulders like he does. You'll still be able to see bits like the front of it and then a little bit along the sides, but it won't be quite as pronounced. So you shouldn't really put too much detail on it, because then it'll kind of make them look a bit skinnier there. I don't know. Some people can make it work, but I don't know. I tend to, just whenever I'm drawing a character more muscly, I tend to just try and de-emphasize it a little bit. Yeah, again, you get a little bit at the front like this, and you get a few little stretch lines like that. But again, I don't want to emphasize that too much here, because again, we're going to be adding rocks, so it's going to kind of take away a lot of the details that we're adding in. So there's no point in adding in too much stuff other than the necessary stuff, because it'll make evaluating what needs to go and what needs to stay a little trickier whenever there's too much. And yeah, with this my life isn't quite as hard as it could be, because again I only really have to draw his upper body, because a lot of, or I have to realistically just follow the lines that I've put in, because he's not wearing a shirt, he's not wearing shoes either, but I'm gonna need to do something about those feet because they look kind of weird. But yeah, yeah, and I mean he's just wearing jeans, like, because again, the design sense of Marvel Nemesis is not exactly its strong suit, if it has one. But yeah, like, I mean, I suppose I can take this time to complain a little bit more about the design sense of the game. At the time of recording this, we actually haven't finished recording all the episodes. But yeah, it's just a case of where I feel like the design sense of Marvel Nemesis is really uninspired. I mean, it's very much a product of the time, in that would have been the time where you would have seen the Ultimate Comics and stuff like this, so you would have been seeing a lot more of these kind of casual designs for characters. So for example, Wolverine's design, I mean, even with the movies and stuff like that, it would have been very popular to have Wolverine in just the kind of t-shirt or the vest type of thing going on over him in his suit, because that was just what was popular at the time. But it's also a case of where they go very far in certain places, which I mean we'll get to when we get to some of the female characters. But yeah, it's a case of where with characters like the Thing, even in the Ultimate Comics, the Thing still had a costume. He had more of a costume in the Ultimate Comics than he did in the normal ones. But yeah, it's just a case of where, like, I don't know, it all feels very uninspired and very uninteresting. But I mean, yeah, I don't think I'm saying anything new. I don't think many would praise Marvel Nemesis on its design sense or its liberal, and I use the term liberal, I do not use it lightly, but the liberal use of the color green in the game's color palette, because it is mostly green. It is almost entirely green, one might say. And yeah, it's just kind of yeah, frustrating on that front of where, because this is the thing I even mentioned in well, at the point that this comes out I wouldn't have mentioned it in the Let's Play yet, but it's a case of where the art for the PlayStation 2 version of the game was done by an artist called Jay Lee, and he did a few very famous covers and things like this, and I'm not very familiar with his work, but you'd know it to kind of see it probably. But yeah, it's a case of where his art for the game is quite good, but it's a case of where the design just isn't quite there. And the design, I'm not sure who did the designs, because the design is consistent across all versions, for the most part, consistent across all versions of the game, and each version of the game has a different artist. So I mean, the PSP version, the artist for that is Terry Dodson, and yeah, he's still a working artist. I'm pretty sure Jay Lee is also still a working artist. I'm not sure if they still do any work for Marvel, though. I think at the time they both did work for Marvel. But yeah, I don't know if they still do, because I don't really follow comics these days. But yeah, it's a case of where, yeah, Terry Dodson's art is a little bit more cartoony, whereas Jay Lee's art is much more realistic, and it tends to have a bit more of like a dark, grimy look to it, which fits the game's tone a lot more. But yeah, the art for the PSP version is done by Terry Dodson, who has a much more cartoony style, and some of the designs are a little different. So for example, the Thing has more of a comic book look. He has trunks instead of jeans, and the trunks have the logo and everything on them, and characters like Wolverine are in their classic outfits. But some of the characters retained their kind of weird looks from the game. And yeah, it's odd to me because, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know who did the design, who did a lot of the design work for the game. Maybe it was kind of on a per artist basis of where they kind of designed it per version. I don't know, because some of the design is different, some of the design is the same. It's very hard to tell. I think some of it was kind of maybe the artist might have negotiated a little bit with the team, and they were maybe thinking, good God, some of these are terrible, we need to change them. And yeah, maybe that was how it went down. But yeah, it's not amazing in terms of design. I don't think, yeah, as I say, I don't think many people would defend the game's design, because it's certainly one of the weakest elements of the game. In a game of many weak elements, that is one of its weakest, which is saying something. I do have reference open in front of me from like screenshots and stuff, and as well isolated versions of some of the artwork as well, just to kind of help me through, because yeah, it's a case where I don't normally draw these designs, and a lot of these characters I don't normally draw. Like, I mean, I very rarely draw. I haven't drawn the Thing, I don't think, in a very, very long time. But yeah, it's a case of where you do kind of need a little bit of reference a lot of the time. I mean, I use a lot of reference, but I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. I don't think I can really stop myself with the details I'm adding here, even though most of this stuff is going to be lost in some way, shape, or form by the rocks when I add them. So one might think this is kind of pointless, and you know what? You'd be right, but I'm going to do it anyways because I kind of want to. I need some sort of reprieve in this. I am drawing Marvel Nemesis stuff, so I mean, I need something for me. See, because his chest is kind of protruding forward and he's leaning forward a little bit, it looks like there should be a little bit of like fold underneath each of the kind of abs to a degree, because that's what happens when you're leaning forward a little bit. That's what makes the abs kind of protrude like that. So there should be kind of a little bit of this going on underneath everything, just to kind of illustrate the lean touch. You know, I don't want to over illustrate things, but you know, just trying to kind of add these things in for reference purposes. So I'm having to do a little bit of extra work here to make this work with the shape of the character, because obviously, as you can tell from just looking at this, the person in the reference was most likely quite a tall man. And the way that the Thing is usually proportioned is kind of weird, because he's proportioned very kind of stocky and wide, which that type of proportion you would generally see in someone who's a bit shorter, not in someone very tall like the Thing is supposed to be. So it's kind of a bit tricky when you're doing this, because To get this pose, I ended up finding reference of someone who's really quite tall, which means that his proportions would be different to that of someone who is shorter. And generally, someone shorter is kind of what you'd want for this, because again, stocky and wide. But yeah. Also, a little detail: the thing does have ears in Marvel Nemesis. Weird little detail, because he doesn't normally have ears. Don't know where they went. I wonder if he's just got a little hole in the side of his head. But yeah, that's just a little fun fact for you, a little tidbit for your Marvel Nemesis trivia bingo card. But yeah, that I'm sure you're all keeping. See, in Marvel Nemesis, the thing has a bit of an odd-shaped belt buckle. I'm just gonna adapt that into something kind of more normal. It's got like a weird, like, scarab-looking thing on it. I don't know. It's probably one of those weird designer belt buckles or something. I don't know. It's just kind of strange. Let's kind of adapt the shape of it roughly, I guess. Ah yes, the ripe old year of 2005, when baggy jeans were still a thing. Still a popular thing too, no less. Even in big bulky people, like the Thing is supposed to be. What an odd time. I tried my best here to make this look kind of interesting with the jeans, but to be honest, baggy jeans are kind of tricky in the sense that, I don't know, like by design there's kind of not much you can really do, because you can't do little stretch lines or anything like that, because they're all flattened out, or not even flattened out, but all flopping out, so you wouldn't be getting stretched up lines. You'd be getting kind of more like, I don't really know how to describe the type of lines you'd be getting. It wouldn't be like these lines like that. You'd be getting more stuff, because that's the type of lines you get whenever something's bunched up and tight. But you'd be getting lines like this, of where they're kind of just folding over each other and falling around the place. Yeah, nothing too crazy. But yeah, just kind of throw some lines around the place like this. Again, don't want to go too crazy on the lines, just want to make it kind of work for us a little bit more, so that we're seeing that this is kind of stretching and folding. Again, around the knee, that would be a place of where you'd be seeing a little bit more, not necessarily stretch, but you'd see a bit more bagginess around the knee. The things be kind of bunching up like this in kind of repeating patterns a little bit. To a degree, again, you don't want to kind of go too crazy with the same pattern. Right, we've got the kind of basic idea down, but now we gotta figure out what we're doing with these feet, these wonky looking feet. Because I mean, again, I'm working off of a real not great 3D model here for my reference, on which he has very flat feet. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do to try and fix what we've got here. Because again, I mean, despite the fact that it will be accurate to the game, I don't really want to do him with very kind of flat, chunky feet. So let's see what we can kind of... Well, the angle here doesn't really help us too much either. Alright, that's our kind of basic details done. We do need to add in the rocks, but I think what I'll do there is I will do another layer, and then I will merge them once I'm done. Looks a bit funky, but I mean, we can work with it. We'll have to. Can't really change it now. We've already drawn the whole bloody thing twice at that. No, I mean, yeah, we'll do these rocks here and we'll see what we can get done. Oh, yeah. A thing that has just hit my brain as a good idea might be to turn down the opacity on this, so that it doesn't draw your eye away from those little details that I added in the other one. So whenever I merge them, this will be kind of a little thinner, so that I can at least go in and make certain lines a little thicker. I think this is more or less just a process of adding in random little patterns here to just kind of go along with what we've already added. God, that was a miserable process, but it took forever. Oh God Almighty! But yeah, that's now a separate line layer I have there. I don't even think I'm gonna bother merging it because it's just. I might need to, I'll turn it down to 50 because there it's a little less intense. I had to remove some of it as I was going because yeah, I felt like around the mouth there was maybe a little too much going on there. But I will throw on the dots now, and hopefully this will be a little quicker. I mean, the dots are usually where I end up spending a lot of time, simply because it's a little bit more of an arduous process to get the dots done. But yeah, I feel like the colouring on this is going to be very quick. Shading I'll do my best to be quick on, but yeah. No promises on that. Dog's barking. Again, I've definitely said this in the past, but I'm in this instance using the dot shading here a little bit more for depth rather than shading itself. Because the shading itself will come in with the colored shading, which will be done after I do the flat colors. But yeah, in this instance I'm using this more so just for depth, just to show where all the edges are and define all the little places where there would be some amount of shade or lighting or stuff like around the edges of the head or underneath the nose, stuff like this. Areas where you'd see bits like that. Okay, here he is, the thing. Well, partially at least. Not completely done. Yeah, you wouldn't really know it to look at him, would you, that he's supposed to be the thing? He looks just like some random man, some random very buff man in jeans. Because that was the style at the time. Now what to start with? Probably start with the silver on his belt buckle. It'll probably make my life a little easier. Oh yeah, I have a background I should probably drop in. I pre-made a background. I'll probably have to resize it for this, but I do have a background pre-made. This is the same one I'm using in the thumbnail, so may as well throw it in. Use it here. I think I'm going to need to add some blur to it. Not like Song 2 blur, but some Gaussian blur. I'm not actually showing that off yet, but it is a thing to do just sometimes if you want to obscure some ugly ass lines. That's what I often do. Because it'll just give you the idea of what I want it to give you, and I can just turn it off whenever I don't need it. That's our silver for our belt buckle. Make it like a bluish color because that's what you always do to make it look kind of metallic. It's another little trick for you. You want to make your silver look kind of metallic. You use a kind of a bluish tint to it to make it kind of stand out a little bit like that. there's a point which I actually want to make with this, which is I want to show off something in a bit, and it's going to be whenever I get to the end, more or less. I want to kind of do something when it comes to color grading to see if I can illustrate the point that color grading can and will ruin something if you don't use it right. So I'm going to do 2 color grades at the end, and I'm going to do 2 different backgrounds as well. We'll wait until the end before we start fiddling with that stuff. But yeah, it's just something to remember. If I say it out loud, I should be able to remember it easier. Yeah, you're seeing here these colors are very dull, but that is unfortunately how they look in the game. Because we're here for accuracy, that's what we're doing. After just going around them there, I was very surprised whenever I looked at a screenshot for this game to see that the thing had ears, because it's something that generally speaking, even in the art for this game, it's kind of hard to see that he has ears, but in like all the other comics and in movies and stuff, well, sometimes in the movies, he doesn't usually have ears. It just looks weird to see him with ears, because usually he has that kind of very pronounced, like, wide, long brow that kind of wraps around his head. But in this game, he doesn't. He just kind of has a normal man head, which is a bit strange. But yeah, and in the art, his colors or his the orange of his rocks is a little bit more. Is a lot more orange than it is in the game. In the game, it looks pretty grey. It looks pretty like light brown. And yeah, as I was going to say, I was also very surprised to see that his eyes are actually still blue. Because that's also, that's the thing that they make a point of saying a lot for whatever reason, is that the thing has very light blue eyes. Very bright light blue eyes. I don't know why that's an important detail, but it is a detail nevertheless. And I was kind of surprised to see that they kept it, because based on a lot of the other details that kind of were thrown out or seemingly left put in as an oversight, I feel like, to be honest, the ears were most likely an oversight in their kind of realistification of or realistification of a lot of these characters. But yeah, I feel like, yeah, with the eyes, it is kind of odd that they did that. A lot of characters, it's a case of where even in other stuff they neglect such details. Usually with eye color. With eye color in general, those types of things are usually kind of neglected for, a better actor. When it comes to like a movie or stuff like that, they'll compromise on stuff like that if the actor looks right or if they're good. But yeah, it is just kind of funny to me how they did that in this. How they did keep his blue eyes. Bit of an odd little thing, I suppose. Jeez, I seem to have gone over the lines a lot of times here. It doesn't really matter that much, but it is something that's kind of like to keep on top of. To control my bleeds, as I mentioned before, just to kind of keep it in check a little bit so you're not going too ham and just flying over the lines all the time. And it doesn't look great whenever you leave too much of it like that. But yeah, just very quickly finish up these eyes, and then That's our colors done. See, now I have a dilemma. I don't know if I should shade with the purple and yellow. Because the thing is, I know all of these colors will take quite well to that scheme, but I don't know if the two separate gradient maps that I want to do will. We'll see. We'll see. I think I will still do the purple and the yellow, simply because it's a very pleasing color scheme, and I do quite like it. So I don't really just want to kind of leave it without that, because yeah, you know what, I'll still do it. No point in not doing it, but I am gonna need to remember to grab my my yellow again. So where is our light coming from? Let's say our light is coming from the left, and so this part will be the more dark area, and so a lot of the undersides I'll still keep dark. Let's say there's a shadow from behind, but there's lighting coming from the left, and it's coming kind of at a bit of an angle, so it's kind of front left. So this area would still be the darkest area, but you'd be getting little bits of dark around the head as well. Something like that. That's kind of the basic idea of what I think I'm going for here. Alright, time to do our lights. Jeez, those darks took a little bit. This is actually remarkably fast that we're getting through this. We're only just about 2 hours in. So this part shouldn't take too long either. Okay, righty-roo. We've gotten our shading done, and geez, under 2 hours as well. This has been surprisingly fast. Again, this is what happens whenever you have a reasonably simple character design. I say reasonably simple character design. Well, it'll be getting more difficult from here on out. We've still got to do our gradient map stuff. I've already even got the texture in here, so I don't even have to go fishing for that. So, oh yeah, I should do a light line, but this will be rather brief because again, this is what happens whenever you've got a very kind of easily detailed. I don't even know really how to describe it. I guess this is what happens whenever I do a very detailed base sketch, which I can just very easily kind of trace over for the most part. But yeah, which it's good to see that these are going to be quick, because I've done this type of thing for all of them so far. Yeah, I've done a reasonably detailed base sketch for basically all the characters. And yeah, this should make my life a lot easier, should speed up the process quite a bit. But yeah, so yeah, as I say, there is a little brief point I want to make about color grading, and I'll do that in just a moment after I finish up my light line. Okay, that's a very brief light line thrown on, and it does a decent amount for us. I'll leave it on. But yeah, I am forgetting something. I need to sign it. That'll be very quick though, at least. So I'll just throw it down here. There, I have my signature in, and now I need to do, I need to do my gradient map. So, right, so the first gradient map we'll do is a gradient map which more or less matches the color palette of the game. So, green. So we'll get a kind of a darker green like this. Throw out about that amount. And then we'll get a yellowy green. Have an olivey one. And make it about that. And so we're going to want it actually to be much yellower than that. So now we've just got shades of green really. And so we'll make this say something like an overlay or soft light. See, an overlay is more accurate to how it looks in the game really, but we'll make it a soft light just for the sake of our eyes, or a vivid light, maybe even a hard light. Soft light, we'll do this for the sake of our eyes. And then drop it down 60% and throw on our texture. Well, texture is a bit rough on this, but yeah, this is the thing. It doesn't really look great, does it? This gradient map. But so we'll do a different one, and we'll turn off this background. We'll make another background. I will need to go and grab my thing again, but we'll get some colors which I think fit this more. So we'll say get like a yellowy color like this for one, and then get a kind of a blue, like a cool blue color. We're going to still be kind of a little darker, but yeah, we'll get a kind of a cool blue like that, and then a yellow. And that's going to be our color palette for the most part, really. And so we'll run in, grab our gradient there, throw in that, and then now we'll put in a new gradient map. And so we've got our three primary colors like that. And then now let's see how that looks on overlay. Looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? And then on soft light it also looks nicer too. So make this 60%. Throw on the texture. Texture even fits a little nicer here, I feel like. But yeah, this is the little point I wanted to make just about how these things kind of look, or how they kind of work. And let's see, throw on the other gradient map too. Now it looks a bit weird, but yeah, like it's a lot smoother. This gradient map, it looks a lot nicer. Is my point. My simple point is that Marvel Nemesis's color grade looks bad, which you didn't need me to tell you. But color grading is very important in that it can really shape how people look at the art you're making. Because if you've got a really ugly color grade on, it doesn't matter how good the piece itself might be, because people are only seeing this really ugly color grade. Even though you might have very vivid colors, it's being kind of masked by maybe a dull, nasty color that you have as a gradient map. And it's very important to try and find a gradient map that suits your colors and also kind of blends them nicely, because you don't want one that kind of feels awkward, because sometimes you can get one that doesn't really work for your colors. You can get, say, like I don't know, if you have like a green or something as one of your major colors, and then you're putting on like, I don't know, like purple as part of your gradient map. The green might look a bit odd. You never know. So a lot of these things with the gradient maps, most of it works. It's just a case of where if you try and find a color palette that you like, it'll work better, is what I'm saying. But yeah, you know what? I feel like we're kind of done for the most part. The question is, which of these should I leave it on? That is the question. I think just for the sake of my own sanity, I'm going to leave it on that and then use the Marvel Nemesis background, which actually doesn't look terrible with this gradient map. It looks a lot better with this gradient map actually than this one, funnily enough. Weird. That looks very strange with that gradient map on top of it. Anyways, I believe that is it. So, if you like the video, do what you normally do. I can't convince you otherwise. Normally I attempt to. But yeah, what did we discuss in this video so far? I'm jumping the gun a little bit, going straight to the outro. But so we talked, as I just said there, we talked a little bit about color grading. We mainly really talked about the design of Marvel Nemesis and why that design is very much a product of its time. And I didn't really touch on why it hasn't persisted, but it's mainly because a lot of people nowadays kind of want a bit more of an updated look of classic designs, less so a complete reimagining of classic designs to be something more contemporary. Oops, as the corporate buzzword of the day. But yeah, those are really the few things we touched on. There weren't many crazy things I wanted to talk about in this. I mean, I talked a little bit about how I don't really draw characters like the Thing very much, and a little bit about detailing and stuff like that. But yeah, as I said before, because I jumped the gun on the outro, if you like the video, do what you normally do, and I guess that's it. Bye bye.